Welcome back. Now we're going to start looking at the sleeve. What you have here is just the standard sleeve, and this is cut out to a size large. And I'm just going to bring your attention to a couple things. So we have the what's called the wrong side, and it's a little bit of a lighter tinge, and maybe you might not be able to see it on camera, but directly in front here. So we have, of course, this is our darker side. This is what would be our garment side. Now, as always, anytime you're sewing, you want to put right sides together. So with this sleeve, here we are. We've turned it over. This is what we call right side or garment side. I got to remember that because my sewing instructor, she sometimes corrects me and says, "No, no, that's the garment side. If you're gonna do it right, say it right." So there we are. So garment side, right sides together, wrong sides exposed here. So now we're going to take some pins. We're going to run those pins along the seam edge, and of course we're always going to make sure that we're pinning in the direction of our sewing machine. That's always so important. It helps so much. So I'm going to do some pins, and then we're going to go to the machine. Okay, we're all pinned up. We definitely have all of our pins in line in our sewing direction. Oh, we got a pin here that needs to be adjusted. Trying to make sure that your pin is as close to the seam edge as possible so that when you're running your machine, you don't have to stop a bunch of times and pull pins. But you know what? Sometimes that happens. Okay, off to the machine we go. We are back at the machine. We're going to do some stitching here. We're going to be stitching at a seam allowance of 3/8 of an inch. If I didn't tell you earlier, we are using an 80 gauge needle. It is a specifically designed for jersey material made by Schmetz. And this is my walking foot. So we're going to drop our first stitch, lock that in, and get to stitching. Now, aren't these just some glorious stitches? We had just a little warble down here. That isn't going to be too much of an issue, especially when we're dealing with a t-shirt, or I should say a shirting type material. And this is, of course, a duty shirt. You would see this underneath the vest and the jacket. But of course, the seam, you wouldn't see the seam. So this little warble isn't going to cause any problems. So our next step, we are going to depin. Then we're going to put the cuff and attach it to the sleeve. Welcome back. We are now ready to attach our sleeve cuff to our sleeve. Off camera, I took a little time and I went through and I sealed the seams here. So I just closed the seams around the cuff. I think that's important, especially when you're going to attach it to the sleeve itself. Reduces a little bit of struggle when you're pinning, and it just tidies things off so much better. Now, some makers are going to say, well, it doesn't really matter whether you finish the seam here or whether you finish the seam all together. This is just a little easier for me for when I do some pinning. Now, a very important part as you're about to attach the sleeve to the cuff is that you want to line up your seams. And in lining up those seams, you want to make sure that your cuff is in line. It just gives you such a much more professional finish. It looks neater, and you know when you're wearing it, it's not always going to be that ant on your brain as you put this on. Ah, gosh, I just wish I would have taken that extra time to make sure that my seams were matched up, and it doesn't look like it's tidied up here. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take a little bit of time to make sure that my seams are in place, and I am going to add a couple extra pins. So not only am I going to put pins around the circumference, but I'm also going to put some pins along the length here just to make sure that when I do start stitching for my seam, and that the seam here of the shirt and the cuff are matching. Okay, I'm happy with that. Now we're going to start doing our pinning with the cuff into the sleeve here. As you pin, uh, you want to make sure that you're always going in direction of the sewing line. So if you have this here, and you always want to go left to right. You want the pin heads to your left. You want the pointy ends to your right. If you can do that, you'll have no problems as you carry on. So let's get to pinning. All right, all done. Good pins are set. We're in line with our sewing direction. We're now going to go to the machine. Okay, we are done now. We have the cuff attached to the sleeve. We're going to go back to the measuring board, and then it'll be time for the big reveal. We're back at the measuring board. Here we are. So we have the wrong sides facing out, the seam side, and then oh goodness, look at this. Still had a pin stuck in. Wouldn't be pins and patience without it. So we have our sleeve cuff sewn to our sleeve. And now what we're going to do is we're going to pull this right sides out, and then we're going to double check to see just how well the seam from the sleeve cuff and the sleeve have matched up. And oh my goodness, would you look at that? Look at how clean that is. Look at how the seam from the sleeve cuff matches in line with the sleeve itself. I am super happy about this. I really think that this is probably some of my better work. Everything looks neat and tidy. Definitely have some extra exposed stitches here, but you know what? That's okay. As long as everything is honestly on this side, I'm very happy. Everything worked out. From a crafts person perspective, yeah, this to me is the most important part right here. So I'm going to give this a 9 pins out of 10. I hope you do too. And now we're going to work on to an entirely different part of the build. We're going to start on the front of the shirt with the zipper and zipper facings and zipper attachment. So stay tuned.